If you're the lucky owner of an Android phone that hasn't burst into flames like the shithouse product that it is, have I got an offer for you today. It's a brand new dating app for Caucasians only. No darkies allowed. Do it right. Keep it white. And every download of the app today from the App Store will come with over 20 pounds of pussy and ass. Act now, supplies limited. Well, welcome back to the Metocast. I didn't think I'd be doing any more of these, but recent events with Google and other tech companies kind of spurred on some interest, and I know there's some other people out there that kind of cover similar topics, and so I'm going to have somebody on today to talk about it. That would be Styxhexenhammer666. I'm guessing the hexen is because he's a huge fan of the video game, which I am also because it's amazing. So we will get started really quickly here. I'm going to call him in, and we'll jump right into the discussion. So give me one moment. We'll get him in here and get going. And I will try to be taking questions from the chat as we go along here. So bear with me. It goes by a little bit quickly, but I have a feeling I know what we're going to be talking about. So let's get this started. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Okay, let me just check audio levels. All right, let me make sure audio's coming through just fine here. I think we should be good to go.
I can
Think
I can hear just fine on my end.
okay, and I'm sure chat will yell at me furiously if I have screwed up any of the audio settings, but we should be live. So how are you doing? You want to introduce yourself to the chat? I know we've got a mixture, kind of your audience and my audience, for the people who might not know you. Just kind of give a brief idea, I guess, of what you like to cover on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm Styxhexenhammer666, usually covering politics, current events analysis, a little bit of the occult, some MREs and gardening, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, fantastic. So I see that you have taken notice of the same thing that I have taken notice of, which would be a little event that happened, transpired over the past week with the Google memo, or as Google likes to try to call it, the manifesto, to try to give it some dark spin, like it's a nefarious plot from a supervillain in their underwater cavern. What was your takeaway from the memo itself and from the reaction the company gave to it?
Well, the reaction was hilarious because it justifies exactly what the memo said. The poor dude, James Demore was the way you pronounce his last name, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah. He gets fired after complaining that Google fires or suppresses people for having unpopular opinions. So that was the greatest part. It's like I have to assume it wasn't the CEO that did that. It was, I don't know whether it was that diversity officer, the vice diversity officer, or someone lower down, but whoever it was must be kicking themselves because of the reaction. I think even people on the left have a bit to say about it, Salon and these groups aside. But the manifesto or memo wasn't even really anti-diversity. It was in favor of ideological diversity. And then everybody wants to talk about how it was all about gender. That was only one section.
Well, what I found really interesting, especially when the different news outlets were covering it, is they left out the fact that he was citing sources within the document itself.
Mhm.
So these weren't just blank statements he was making. These weren't just, wild ponderings on the part of some engineer somewhere in Google who just thought, hey, I want to talk about this. But he was linking to sources that were backing up or at least, corroborating his point of view or why he was saying what he was saying. But I noticed when they covered it, and quite a few of the different media outlets, they omitted that fact. They tried
Yeah,
to
they
make it,
scrubbed it.
yeah, they tried to scrub it and give it a little bit of a narrative push to make it seem like this was a guy out on his own in the wilderness, completely lost to the facts of the reality of, I guess, working at Google or working in a corporate structure. Um, what do you think? Or now they've let him go. They fired him. I mean that I was sure that was going to happen myself when I saw this coming out and kind of the media firestorm around it. What's been your reaction to, especially on Twitter? I've seen a lot of people at different tech companies around talking about wanting to create blacklists. And at least, on my part, it feels really 1940s Hollywood. What is your take on that of creating blacklists to make sure people like this gentleman don't ever work in the industry again?
I'm sure that they will, but overall, it may not hurt them because, after, as I've said, right now we're in the middle of a moral panic. It's fairly clear, and when it begins to wane, people that have been blacklisted, all of a sudden, they'll be remembered as sort of martyrs. Just like the way that we look back at people from past eras that were mistreated in some way because of their ideology, their lives, whatever they happen to be up to. We usually look back at those people as victims. We consider them blameless. We even, as a culture, I think, gloss over things that they did do wrong. Like we would look back at Martin Luther King, and a lot of people would say, oh, well, he's beyond reproach and he never did anything wrong. He was just such a perfect, wonderful guy. And you go back and you find that wasn't actually the case. But a lot of people in culture, especially, I would assume, among the progressives, they look back and they lionize him. So I think they will. They'll blacklist people, or they'll at least try. But some of these firms won't. There will always be a home for people who disagree with what's going on, and that will end up, because of the amount of competition and suppression, it'll probably lead to the rise of new waves of social media sites that will begin to eclipse the old ones. It is possible to do that.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people, when they speak, particularly about Google, act like it's this monolithic structure. Like it's so big, it's the Goliath that nobody can take on because they're in so many different sectors of the internet. They perform so many different services, whether it's through their search engines or their video sharing platforms or just the different ventures that they're involved in. But I have seen attempts by other sites to try to peck away at that monopoly. I mean, you've got sites like Minds and you've got sites like VidMe, even Gab AI and different websites that are trying to do that. Do you think that with the way that Google is behaving currently, and not just with the memo and the reaction to firing this man, but even in regards to how YouTube is kind of handling itself with their Flagger program and with the, as I guess YouTube content creators have called it, the adpocalypse. Uh, kind of, what's your take on that? Do you think that Google is showing a weakness that is there for others to capitalize on and to start to peck away at?
Yeah, they're preaching to the choir because all of those same people that they're trying to appease right now are going to use Google services anyway. They're not understanding that there's a niche of people that want to have less censorship. The problem is they're going to be steadily more and more pressured to add additional layers of censorship. And at some point, they either say no and piss off all those people they worked hard to appease, or they say yes and they crumble their own site because they go a bridge too far. And that seems to be what happens in the past. It's like certainly with government censorship of TV and radio back in maybe the 70s and 80s. They keep pushing everyone further and further and further, and pretty soon, on demand and all of this other content, satellite radio, come along and they begin to make a new home for people. The internet comes along when those start stagnating, and then the old guard of the internet, which certainly at this point includes Google, they're going to have the same problem. I can remember back when Yahoo was dominant, not Google. Or you'd think back to MySpace or any of these other very large sites at the time. They are vulnerable. Google's no exception to that rule. They can fail. I hope that they don't. I like using YouTube. I mean, we're on YouTube right now. But all these other sites are required to provide the competition needed to pressure them into not, screwing themselves, really.
With regards to the, I guess with the adpocalypse, one of the things that I found, I think, strangest about it is revenue's been cut across the board. I've heard a lot of content creators say that their ad revenue is down. Monday, Matt tweeted out, I think about 3 or 4 days ago, saying that he'd made $15 for the 100,000 views that he'd gotten, and other people were saying that that was just ridiculously low. Now, Monday Matt is pretty, I don't want to be insulting, but banal or milquetoast. I mean, he isn't putting out radical content, so I couldn't really picture him being targeted for putting out something so extreme. Advertisers wouldn't want to touch it. But people were saying, that's down from $100, which you usually would have gotten. Now he's getting 15.
I think part of that is they're running out of advertisers because some of the larger firms fled. I think they're having trouble getting more on board. Probably for the same reason. They either they don't go far enough, so some pro censorship like company that's like, oh, squeaky clean image. They don't want to advertise with YouTube because they're like, oh, there might be like Nazis on there. And then groups that are more edgy, it's like they don't even have the option of serving ads really and targeting it on the edgy content. What I suggested months ago is Google should have two sets of ad revenue for people to use, one for the edgier content. Because, like, does Red Bull necessarily care if someone says the F word or they say something a little edgy or out there? Some sex toy company, they don't care. They'd love to serve ad. I mean, it would be effective to serve ads, but they need to have somewhere to put them. They don't want to put it on, some makeup channel probably.
Yeah, and I've had conversations with people about this before. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Google hasn't approached advertisers or advertisers hasn't approached Google to talk about some kind of a tiered system, where Disney would only want the PG content, but something like a sex toy company or anything else would want something a little more edgy and wouldn't really care. I don't know if they're working towards something like that. But in regards to the advertisement, what I found interesting was so they're cutting ad revenue down for people that use advertisements on their channel. But now you've got something like Super Chat, where you can stream and say almost anything you want, and the money's given directly to you. So it seems like the moral objection here isn't that YouTube doesn't like the content, that they don't like what you're saying. It's like they just want to protect the advertisers. They don't care. They'll let you give money to anybody who says anything, even the most extremist stuff, as long as it's directly to you
Yeah.
through Super Chat. Do you think that's a weird corporate mentality to have that kind of a duality of opinion at the same
No,
time?
no, it's because the pro diversity, pro censorship Google or YouTube that people are seeing on the surface is a ruse to keep the very vocal minority of social justice warriors and NGOs from breathing down their neck. In reality, Google just wants to make a buck. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about their moral haranguing on the left. I don't even think that people are talking about, oh, Google is so far left. Google doesn't have a political ideology. They have a money ideology. But what happens is they have no choice but to censor content. But what they're trying to do is create side avenues, I think, for the edgier people. My hope with this new like shadow banning sort of limited state stuff they're talking about, my hope is that there will be a workaround or it'll be easily combated in some way. Now, I could be wrong, but as we saw with restricted mode months ago, they ended up basically destroying their own program. Their original idea was, oh, well, we'll just put everything to restricted mode. That'll appease these people. Fallout was so severe, and I think it decreased their revenue so much that they had to pull back off of it. This limited state stuff, if they applied it liberally, hell, half the content on YouTube would probably go into a limited state. They'd be hemorrhaging money. So it's not in their best interest to do. And if they see that they are losing money, which they may as people flee anyway, hopefully they pull back on it. I mean, they didn't get to where they are by being that dumb. So I would hope there's enough intelligence not to pursue it too far. I oppose any form of censorship online not related to criminal activity or credible threats, stalking or something. But if they have to impose anything at all, it should be as little as possible, just to keep the blue-haired freaks from being too loud, I guess.
Yeah, and I would be in agreement with that. I don't like the idea of censoring an opinion. Unless it's something blatantly illegal, I don't see what the issue is. People should be adult enough to be able to decide the content they want to consume or not. But there seems to be a push, and you notice this across Google and even other social media platforms. I would include YouTube as a social media platform, even though it's video sharing, but it's similar. A push from the old-fashioned kind of capitalist idea of an amoral company that's out to make a buck to one that wants to somehow mediate or mitigate damage they see that you'll be exposed to. They want to kind of nanny you as to what you're allowed to consume or not consume. I mean, we've seen this on Twitter with Jack Dorsey implementing a ton of policies from throttling to shadow banning. We've seen this on Reddit where they shadow ban. Um, we've even seen this on Facebook with Zuckerberg talking to the EU and having speeches with Merkel about getting rid of anti-Semitic speech or anti whatever speech. Um, I agree that you would think that a company that's large enough and wants to be profitable enough would take the amoral approach of we are basically hands off unless it's illegal. But it seems like if you get ideologues kind of steering the ship at a higher level, you run into a bit of a danger of them sinking the company. Do you think that Google and the people that are at the helm right now would fall into that category, or do you really believe that this is just kind of like a PR strategy of we say what we need to say, but at the end of the day, when we're in the boardroom, we're laughing about it because we really just don't give a shit?
Yeah, it's a PR strategy, but one that could be fatal for any of these companies. If they go too far, they might end up like MySpace, collapse their site too quickly to be able to repair the damage. What we really have to think of is which of these sites are we betting are still going to be around in 10 years when the paradigm is fully shifted over. And that kind of censorship is then aimed at the other so-called side, which is like the social justice warriors, and they begin ignoring their pleas and trying to go after them. Because that's what I predict will happen. Society is beginning to change. The sort of progressive paradigm built out of the post-Herbert Walker era, I guess, and certainly the post-9/11 era, is beginning to crumble. You see, well, why do you think they would try to censor all of this so-called far-right content if it weren't becoming more and more and more prevalent, more and more loud, and more of a threat to the established order? That's the only reason why they're bothering to censor anything, because the right now is rising up. It's the left the old left is failing. The progressive left, I guess, is doing fine within the confines of the Democratic Party here. Elsewhere, their arguments are starting to be rejected and ripped apart even by other progressives. We see the Bernie bros maybe going after some people that are like rad femmes or in favor of like total disarmament or something. That's basically a microcosm of what we're seeing. And I mean, European policies may change too. They've come close to, Le Pen did what she needed to do. Wilders did what he needed to do, Hofer, and all these others. There will be a Brexit. The European Union could very well collapse. So if that happens, then all bets are off. There may be no European powers left to put pressure on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. I hope so. I hope that happens.
When you're kind of looking, I guess, at the difference between where America is politically right now and where Europe is politically right now, you brought up Wilders, you brought up Le Pen. Do you see that as, at least in the case of Europe, do you see that they've made the push and the push stalled, or do you see that even though Le Pen and Wilders didn't, take it, do you see that as just kind of the beginning of where it's headed? Like this is the start of something rather than a stalled effort at getting somewhere?
Yeah, it's just the beginning. If they keep putting too much pressure on Poland and Hungary, you may see Eastern Europe rip itself out of the EU, and then basically the gig is up because the rest of them won't have cheap labor to prop up Merkel's economy, I guess. But yeah, it's just the beginning. People want to lose faith and say basically, oh no, all of our efforts are in vain. We will be communists soon because one election is lost. As far as I know, nobody in their right minds was ever predicting Wilders would win. A lot of them were predicting that he would end up basically collapsing, but he grows the support he needs and basically destroys the center left that was part of the government there. They no longer exist. The main party had to ally, I believe, with the Green Movement of all people.
Right.
And they don't even agree with them half the time. Le Pen really puts pressure on Macron, and you look, Macron gets elected on basically, oh, I'm a happy globalist, I love everyone, more immigrants, please, platform. Now they're calling him Jupiter. They're calling him the utmost imperialist he could possibly be, and acting as though, he's a total failure because he's like, oh, well, yeah, maybe we need to protect our culture, kind of. And so he's not even really the boogeyman that the left wanted him to be. They wanted him to be sort of the progressive savior. It turns out he's not willing to go off into commie land, and now they're all angry at him.
Yeah, a little bit of a bait and switch, basically, with what they were expecting.
Yeah.
Okay, back to what you had said about kind of the rise of the right and the diminishment of the left. My personal opinion on this, at least, is that when Trump was running for office, I think that a lot of the social media companies and the people in charge, a lot of the vocal voices in there, didn't think he had a chance. And so I think they were pretty lax as far as it came to allowing people to use their platforms to say what they wanted to promote their candidate. But I think once he won, I think it scared the shit out of them. Do you think that has a factor? Do you think that plays a part in why we're seeing such a big crackdown post-election in America, at least with our social media?
Yeah, it's certainly part of it. I think that's part of the beginning of the end of the current paradigm. I mean, I've explained, I think 2 days ago on video, that it really, the current upheaval starts really with the Tea Party. It doesn't start with Trump. But that's sort of the death knell of the established order, being able to make the claim of hegemony. What they had claimed was this is the new way of America, the new way of the West. Globalism is the inevitable future. Progressivism, whatever the fuck that means, is the inevitable future, and so forth. They can no longer make that claim. The claim that Mo whites or the right wing or whatever other loosely defined group they decide to go after next was going to inevitably disappear from the face of the earth, leaving behind a workers' paradise run by a bunch of socialists, I guess, didn't turn out to be true. Now the next step is they're trying to say, oh, it'll never happen again. He'll be a one-termer. He's so weak and inept. That's why they browbeat him every single day on the lamestream media. But what they're not seeing is that by the time 2020 rolls around, the internet will be totally different. Cable will be less relevant than it even was the last time. Radio will be less relevant. More and more people will probably have turned it off. The rest won't be paying any attention. And people will be getting primarily their news and media from people who may very well gravitate towards very pro-free speech sites that, if properly marketed as that, will begin to eclipse the old sort of more heavily censored sites unless they peel back that censorship. At that point, the left is left hanging. They can't simply shut people up by trying to blackball them anymore. And it'll be fun. Like when that happens, a lot of people are going to chuckle and say, told you so, because they're trying to warn them right now, hey, you should be less pro-censorship, because when the shoe's on the other foot, which it inevitably will be, you're going to get your ass kicked. These people are delusional enough to think it'll never be on the other foot, like they've won forever. It's never happened in the history of mankind. Things always change.
Yeah, there's always a shift back and forth. I mean, it's cyclical. There's a generational theory that kind of talks about that too. When we're talking about these alternative platforms, places that people can go, I wanted to get your opinion on this because I know you use VidMe. You've used it longer than I have, I believe. I've used it for a few months. What is your honest opinion on that? I know a lot of people right now are spooked by what's going on with YouTube. A lot of people are looking for places to go. They don't know where to go. People are talking about older sites like a Vimeo or Dailymotion. And VidMe's getting put out there a lot. A lot of people are talking about it. What's your experience with the site been? Do you think it's doing a good job? How could it do a better job? Just kind of your general ideas on it.
Yeah, they need to be more welcoming of political discourse, and unless they do that, their growth will be slower. If they open that up and begin telling people, hey, we're the free speech alternative to YouTube with a similar kind of style, they'll skyrocket, they'll take off, and they'll become at least like another Vimeo or Dailymotion. Those sites seem tiny in comparison to YouTube. They're still massive websites overall. I've got a Dailymotion account. There's not a whole lot, honestly, going on there at this point. It's kind of a dead site for anyone, I believe, who doesn't speak French, because I think Dailymotion is in France.
Yeah, it's a French site.
Yeah, and so naturally you're going to get quite a bit of political censorship there. I wouldn't be surprised if they employ algorithms and they just overhauled the way they look. Vimeo is perfectly fine, but you've got to pay to host significant amounts of content. I think that at this point, BitChute probably has, seemingly, from what I understand about it, the best overall model to be a competitor because it's decentralized. Essentially, it's torrent-based. So you can't be censored. There would be no one sort of central server for the most part actually hosting all the material. It would actually be really, really easy for that to become sort of the new internet, something that's so decentralized in which content is just sort of hosted on people's own computers or some little home server or something. That would be great, because then no company could ever come in and say you can't say X, Y, and Z, because people are making a conscious decision with their own. All you'd have to do is utilize the ISPs. You wouldn't have to go through like a Facebook or a YouTube or something like that. But right now, I still believe YouTube can be reformed. VidMe is perfectly fine, but people have to realize there is censorship there. It just happens to be less. I think they don't censor me because I'm their second biggest creator, I think, or third or something. Like I think Computing Forever is number one. There's someone called I Hate Everything who's number two, which maybe shows you who was on the site early. But yeah, it's a working platform. It doesn't have significant issues other than they freeze the politics category. I've told them twice they should not do that. Other people have told them. At some point, maybe they listen, even if they are sort of Reddit backed. And I know they love censorship on Reddit, of course.
Yeah, I've noticed it seems like VidMe's in a weird kind of spot where they want to grow their brand, right? They want to grow their website, but I think they're spooked. Like they see there are different demographics of kind of the more average internet user who wants to put up political commentary or who wants to do videos about, comedy, that kind of stuff, and then the soccer mom kind of Reddit demographic. And I think they're in this weird spot where they're spooked between, which do we allow, and can they coexist with one another? My experience with VidMe so far has been, fairly straightforward. I haven't really had any major issues. Now, I haven't heard much about BitChute, but it'd be fun, what's old is new again. The idea of, a torrent-based video delivery system uh, does sound kind of interesting. Now, is that something that just started, or what? How much do you know about it, I
It's
guess?
it's something that people have been mentioning now for some weeks, and I briefly checked it out. I need to explore it more in depth. But if it ever really gets off the ground, it could very easily become the next YouTube. Look, one of the main problems with YouTube is that it takes a hell of a lot of space to store all of those videos. With something like BitChute, you don't have that problem. You don't have to have some mile-wide server farm somewhere using up as much electricity as all of Manhattan. It's just not necessary. People's own computers will be helping to carry that burden.
So
I would,
you're offsetting the cost onto the user. I mean, it's on their computer, so you don't have to worry about storing it,
yeah,
which is
people
brilliant.
Yeah, people store it instead of like liking a video, you would store it as a torrent. I guess the idea is make it available for others to get, and you'd have a certain number of people who are seeding something, and it becomes more and more deliverable over time. People who have a popular message, who's going to censor them? What are you going to do? Take down thousands of people's PCs, I guess, in order to cripple the network. I suppose that it would you kind of leave it maybe open and vulnerable to hacking or something like that, or certainly other problems. But it seems like a logical sort of next step for the internet anyway. I mean, it takes care of one of the central problems of the internet.
Okay. Kind of talking a little bit about BitChute, do you think people are going to have to readjust their mentality when it comes to, I guess, sharing videos? I think there's a lot of narcissism, let's be honest, involved in video content creation. People get hooked on the idea of how many likes do I have, how many comments do I have, how much are people praising me for it. If we go to a torrent-based system where it's just people seeding and downloading, right? Um, will that be enough to attract those people? I mean, will it be enough to build? I would use something like that. I'm sure you would use something
Oh
like
yeah.
that, but there are going to be a lot of people that won't. How can they help that growth? Is there a way to, I guess, feed the vapid assholes that we would need to really
Yeah,
grow it?
probably everything other than the video would still be on site, I would assume. So there'd still be a rating system or something like that. It's just they wouldn't be able to censor the videos because it's being people have like some program in order to deliver the videos. At least that's my understanding. Again, I don't think it's even completely open yet, and it's just sort of semi-conceptual at this point. But the concept itself, I have nothing but praise for, because if it can't be reasonably censored, if it can cross borders very easily, if it becomes impossible for the site to ever be abusive because there's really nothing they can do to stop a video from circulating, unless it's like strictly illegal, that's great. Until then, though, YouTube is fine. It's just a worry of will it continue to be fine, essentially. YouTube's really easy to use. It's the largest of all. There's a reason why people use it. But if it starts to fall apart, if they start suppressing all intelligible content on the site, what's left? Okay, I can go and look up makeup. I can go and look up how to buy a three-piece suit or how to go bowling. Well, I don't need any of those videos. It's not what built YouTube in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that too. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It just seems like people are. I don't know. People are really spooked, and I don't blame them with kind of everything that's been going on. It feels to me at least like we're in a really weird place where the concept of what social media is and what all these sites are built on, the U in YouTube and the Twitter and Facebook and all of these places are built on interacting and communicating with one another. That's the entire point of social media. But it seems to have gotten itself twisted where we don't want to allow certain people to interact with anybody. And I keep waiting for that golden goose to appear. The one site that's just going to knock them all on their asses and make them realize how big they fucked up when they all go
Yeah.
the way of MySpace.
Yeah, they'll be like, or they'll be literally the next Sears or something. You,
Right.
you would think of one of these older companies from long, long ago that used to be so dominant. They had all the skyscrapers, huge offices, trucks everywhere, ad campaigns. Everybody wanted to go there. Everybody knew who they were. Now, look, like how many stores, how many Sears outlets are still open, and how many are still functioning? Or Kmart, I think they acquired that brand some time ago. You could see that happen to literally any company. What they need to do is, it's not about being resistant to all change and just sitting there falling on your sword over and over saying, no, no censorship whatsoever. But they're being led off into la la land thinking that the censorship that they're actually going to implement, supposedly, is a good idea, is going to grow the amount of money that they make or their prestige or something. You're not going to get any additional prestige from shadow banning people who have not even broken the TOS. That's probably the worst part of their suggestion. They're not even saying, well, if you break the rules, we're going to limit your video's scope. They're saying, oh, well, it doesn't break any rules. Some other group that has used some weirdly defined rule book to determine, hey, you shouldn't be able to spread your video around. And I think that the immediate answer to that is a site that compiles the banned videos, call it Underground Tube or something like that, and adds a sharing function, make it easier for people. That stuff will go viral because it'll be the edgy, taboo content, and all the cool kids will be watching it. They'll be like, fuck regular YouTube. I want to watch all the cool band stuff.
Yeah, it's the allure of the unattainable, right? I mean, when you
Yeah.
try to separate somebody from something, they want it even more because they want to know why you're taking it away. Which is weird to me, right? If you think that these companies are worried about kind of the rise of right-wing politics or right-wing opinions, and this is their attempt to try to kind of suppress that, it's having almost an opposite effect because it's getting people talking about it more and it's getting people interested in it more.
Yeah, they've been doing this for a while. They did it with Ron Paul. They practically crippled the Republican Party there for a while. They've done it about everything that they oppose. What they don't want, they just want to make money. As a corporation, Google, whatever it is, they want to make money. So they've got to save face by pretending to be in love with diversity and, oh, everyone should get along. No naughty words here. Ultimately, though, if they go too far in that pretense, it becomes very real. It's perception over reality. People will perceive them as being interested in only promulgating far left causes, which means most of the population will be like, well, why am I even using this site? They'll straggle along for a while, but as soon as an alternative is made that's cooler, that's more interactive and technologically adept, people will flee to that new site. It'd be like using Dig or one of these old sites from years ago that nobody cares about anymore.
No, we've talked about kind of about social media and just sharing content, but there is or a money side to this. It's not just the deplatforming; it's the demonetization.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
what was your opinion on kind of what happened with Lauren Southern and how Patreon handled that?
I think the problem solved itself very quickly with Patreon and a million other people trying to make upstarts or their own websites. I mean, it almost ceases to be a problem. But I opposed what Patreon was doing, because I'm like, well, uh, the entire video after the first couple of minutes, which was kind of rational explanation, they were like, okay, here we're going to say she broke the rules. Here, let us show you kind of why. After that, though, it was, here's a dead Syrian kid. How dare you want to give this woman money? Here's refugee statistics. Oh, Lordy, we must help them. And all of these other things. It was total propaganda. And then Jack Conte has the gall towards the end to bring up this Antifa page. This was like the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh, I'm only mentioning it in passing. It has nothing to do with, like, we didn't ban this page to assure you that that we were being unbiased and that it wasn't just Lauren Southern. It's like, yes, it's exactly what you're doing. There's no other reason to bring it up in that context.
Yeah, I'm aware that
For that reason.
yeah, it's going down, right? Was the name of the organization?
Yeah.
I know people have been complaining about it for like months and months and months, and nothing had been done. It did kind of
Yeah.
seem like Conti was taking it down to be like, see, we're being it felt like PR, I guess, rather
Yeah.
than a genuine principled stance.
And even worse than that, it was a total false equivalency. What Lauren Southern said on that ship which was kind of, just banter while she's on it. Nobody died, nobody was hurt, no criminal action. They were let go by, I think, like, what was it, the Italian Coast Guard or something. No harm, no actual apparent criminal action. This other page from Antifa was openly stressing, oh, here's how you can cause a train to derail. Here's why you should engage in vandalism. Blah blah. I mean, here, attack people with a ball bat or something. They're totally different things. It was openly encouraging violence, as opposed to Lauren Southern, who's saying, yeah, we're going to stop some ships here. And by the way, they're not rescue ships. And I never heard Jack Conte come out and clearly state how he knows that she's wrong, by the way, in saying that. How does he know that they're not human traffickers? Because he heard it from the New York Times? He doesn't know anything about the issue. He's not floating around in the Mediterranean trying to determine who's who. Lauren Southern was, though. She probably has more knowledge about it than him, but he'd rather grandstand for political reasons. And it's probably going to denigrate Patreon's overall audience, because now people are nervous. Well, before they said, oh, well, if I'm not breaking any laws or fairly clear TOS, then I'm fine. I can use this to fundraise. Now they're like, they have second thoughts. They have doubts, so they're moving towards other services. I made a Patreon account. I didn't do that in the expectation of being kicked off Patreon. I did it because others, number one, wanted to boycott the site, and number two, because I have a doubt in my mind there may come a time at which I get kicked off Patreon. Why take the chance? It doesn't make any sense. So now their competitor is making money too.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people express the opinion that they're worried that the day of the rope, so to speak, is coming as far as Patreon. That it's just going to start taking more and more people off of the platform. I brought this up when I was on the Masterson podcast on his show. It surprises me that a company like Patreon doesn't take the amoral approach. Again, why try to inject your sense of morality into what is or isn't okay? As long as a clear law has not been broken, why even begin to interfere?
Yeah.
As
Well,
a business, don't you want to make the most money you can? It seems counterproductive.
and even funnier is the left entrusting for-profit corporations that handle people's money to be the arbiters of truth and justice or something. Like, not even 20 years ago, they were rambling, oh, every corporation is evil. They're all scumbuckets. They're corrupt. They're destroying the water and they're destroying the world, and they work with totalitarians. Now it's just a love fest. They come and say, oh, I love these companies so much because they censored this person. They don't even realize that you're going to end up getting censored at some point too, because they're just so deluded into thinking that their worldview will always be the dominant one. They're making so many mistakes. It's laughable. Patreon ultimately, though, now is between a cock and a hard place, because if they pull back on it, if they were to go down the more pro-liberty side, say, okay, well, because of people's responses, we're no longer policing a lot of this stuff. If it's illegal, like stalking or something, yeah, everything else we don't care. Bye-bye, see you, we're not going to talk to you anymore. Then they would end up pissing off a lot of the people they have ingratiated themselves to that feel more positive about the site because they're on the left. Meanwhile, they would absorb some from the right. Now, every time somebody does something wrong that would legitimately be bannable, they will cry about censorship, chalk it up to politics or religion, and their fans will flee the site. And it could go into a death spiral because of this, because there are so many people that they talk about that as their sole issue in some cases.
Now with Patreon, I haven't had a chance to use it, but I have seen it advertised. So is it basically, is it aping what Patreon's doing, but just pushing aside the morality of it? Is it attempting to be a Patreon without the moral authority to say yes and no, and it's just more free
Yeah.
speech?
It's literally Patreon minus some of the terms of service. It's just a stripped down TOS version of Patreon. I guess hate in the title of it has more to do with, like, okay, hate speech is okay with us, than with actually hating anybody. As far as I can tell, it's like a minarchist site or something.
Yeah, I found that funny. I saw somebody had written an article about it, trying to act like or maybe it was a video, talking about how the hate in it was so, oh my God, look, they're being obvious. It's just a hate speech site, but it's ridiculous because I don't buy the hate speech shit to begin with.
Yeah.
Speech is speech, but It's interesting to me that it popped up, and do you think it has, I guess, a good future if Patreon does start to best or death spiral? Do you think more people are going to kind of transition over there?
Based on the number of larger creators that are already there, I'd say they're probably already at least making ends meet. I can't see why they wouldn't succeed. All they've got to do is get the word out there. Hey, there's a platform that's basically the same. It's just as easy to use. There's literally no additional constraint put onto it, but anybody can use it unless they're clearly breaking the law. I mean, they talk about how loose their TOS are. That's a good thing. It means that people who are getting kicked off some other crowdfunding platform have a place to raise money, just as like BitChute, VidMe, these other sites provide a home for anyone who really is getting screwed by YouTube. Now, I've had in the last 24 hours or so, like 4 or 5 people say, oh, well, this person's getting censored. That person's been shadow banned. Now, I'm checking their material. I'm not finding any evidence of it. But it's quite clear that people are panicking about the fact that YouTube's even discussing it. Just like with Patreon, some of the people leaving the site, they were never themselves censored or kicked off or harassed or warned by Patreon. But why are they going to stick around if there's the possibility? People want security too. They want to know, hey, the money I'm making for my effort will keep coming. The material I am making will have some place to be put. My presence online will continue. That's all they want. They don't want to get kicked off because because they said something that some third waiver will find offensive, someone who's working for the ADL.
Right. Yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a panic mode going on. And I mean, really, these companies have nobody to blame but themselves. I mean, they've
Yeah.
set the stage for people being worried about what can I create? And the worst thing to do, I think, in that situation is making everybody double check and triple think. Can I make this joke? Can I put this content up? Is it okay if I do that? Will they cut my funding? Will they blacklist me from their site? Who wants to live under that? Who wants to deal with that kind of anxiety? Who wants to create a bunch of content that's really funny and people really like, and then have to worry that the very next day somebody's going to get upset and completely destroy it and remove it?
Yeah, and the funny part is, like with radio, with the shock jocks of the early era or something, the FCC ended up stepping in to try to censor them. But with the online world, no FCC needed, no apparent real government oversight, no coercion needed. They censor themselves. The problem is that they've built all their profits on the decentralized content other people are making. My question to them would be, why is hate speech a bad thing? Well, first, does it exist at all? Secondly, why exactly have a problem with it? If you don't like what's being said, you don't have to watch it. Most of the people online are adults. If they see something they find totally off the wall offensive, they're gonna shut it off, or they'll downrate it, or leave a nasty comment. That sounds way more exciting. That's like the way the web should be. It should be as uncensored as possible, because then it's exciting. It's fun. It's fun to occasionally yank someone's chain, but if you can't do that without getting banned potentially because you picked on someone who's easily offended and starts rambling about anti-Semites or sexism or something, what's the point? There'll be like nothing fun. It'll just be boring forever. They'll be retarded.
Now, I know that you said you had about an hour to talk, so there are a few other topics I wanted to cover and get your opinion on because it's probably kind of in your area. Now, I browse Poll a lot, but I also browse X a lot, and there seems to be a happening that people keep talking about that's coming up from August 21st to September 23rd. Two big events. What's your take on that? What do you think is going to happen?
Unless we end up in a nuclear war with North Korea, probably nothing. I can remember when X declared that the Georgia Guidestones said that we were going to have mass genocide at 2015. I can remember the 2012 Mayan prophecy days, Y2K, and all of these other things. Yeah, most of these people don't even understand their own religion or spiritual path, much less the greater workings of the cosmos as they deal with an eclipse of all things or anything like that. So I don't really read too much into it. I'm more interested in the legit and or academic side of the occult than, some random person on a paranormal page. Oh, my tulpa told me that the world is ending tomorrow. Everybody get to your basements. Maybe you'll survive.
So you don't believe on the 21st that the eclipse is going to trigger the gate in St. Louis and open up the nether realm, as some people are predicting?
See, I wish that would happen. It certainly brings some excitement to the world, and then Google wouldn't censor anyone because they'd be too busy fleeing through the streets. But no, I don't think it's going to happen.
Now, what about the 23rd of September? That's supposed to be an alignment of the stars. It doesn't happen. There's all this Christian uh, ideology that's put into it. I'm very lightly versed on this because I've only read a few threads about it. But the crown of her head and the lion, Leo, and all of that, and I guess the Antichrist is coming. But they're putting these two events kind of side by side. You've got this eclipse that's going
Yeah.
through this key area, and then the next month you've got this alignment of stars. I've been fascinated by it because I know that they're going to be thread after thread after thread on it for the next
Yeah.
month. But you're putting no stock in it. You don't think we're going to have a big apocalyptic happening?
No, the idea of astronomy overlapping with prophecy as per Revelation or something, that's actually interesting because that originally was more said in the Enlightenment by deists and or by like mid 1800s rationalists and spiritualists. I can remember when I was editing the biography of Satan, I believe it was. There's actually a passage on that, and that comes from the 1860s. We're talking during the Civil War it was written. But I don't put much stock in it because it's all symbolic. Like it's literally just a reference from older pagan circles. It has nothing to do with the future. It has, I mean, people think, oh, the stars align in a certain way, something will happen. No, it's not. What will happen is your perception may change. That may change your behavior. And I suppose if you do a little tip of the hat to the butterfly effect, okay, maybe it changes the world for ill or for better, but not on any absolute sort of cosmic and divine level, no.
Now, when you compare that with these two events and all these people putting stock into it, I mean, we've heard for the last year meme magic, right? And the idea of creating thought
Yeah.
forms and doing all of this kind of stuff, and people put a lot of stock into that, and thinking that they got Trump elected through it, through the power of Keck and all of that. What's your take on that?
It was very effective propaganda and got people excited for Trump. So, I mean, it worked. People were spewing frog memes everywhere. And then Hillary Clinton, she made the grave mistake of basically referencing it in her deplorable speech. And I mean, the internet went fucking wild. It was great. It was exciting. And memetics is really, on that end of the occult, it's really more just an understanding of synchronicity and almost propaganda in a way. It doesn't have anything to do with some mystic mumbo jumbo, as in literal otherworldly entities are using a cartoon frog to affect the world. Keck aside as an actual legit ancient deity, that's not really how it works. It's about spreading consciousness. That it encapsulates a feeling. The original, well, not the original, but the original smug Pepe that everyone uses is the original. It encapsulates a human feeling very easily and can be applied to different situations. It just happened to spread around a lot. Then it gets people discover, oh, there's like an ancient frog god that seems to have kind of smug qualities. And then we have, of course, the Chatelet song that really drove them wild. We've had other music since then. And it just sort of spirals out from there. But it's really more about propaganda, almost in a secular manner, than it is about pure mysticism. But if you understand that, if you can harness that, you can affect the way others perceive reality easily. It's still a form of magic in a way.
Okay. Now, there have been a few questions in chat. I thought I'd ask you if you're okay with that.
Oh, sure.
People are asking you to clink a spoon for them.
Oh, I don't have a spoon next to me at the moment.
No spoon clanks for the chat. I'm sorry,
No.
chat. You'll have
Sorry,
to.
letting you down forever.
You've let them down forever. The other thing people have been asking repeatedly is about the apparently enormous size of your cock. Can you
Oh.
confirm or deny that for the chat?
No, it's 6.66, not 10.2.
See, now you've disappointed them because that 10.2 has been thrown out there repeatedly throughout the entire
Well,
conversation that we've been having.
maybe it's 10.1. You can't exaggerate about yourself.
10.1. There we go. We've we've confirmed that. Kind of coming up, I guess, back on topic. I just wanted to throw a few questions because they've repeatedly asked those two specific things. What do
That's constant, yes.
what do you see playing out? I guess over the next, let's say, 2 months. I mean, we kind of see the height of where this memo thing is, and kind of the Flagger program and all of that. what do you realistically see happening within the next 2 months with social media platforms and kind of people's reactions to it? Do you think a real migration is going to happen? Do you think the companies are going to back off? Will it get worse? What do you predict?
Well, migrating is already happening. VidMe is growing, albeit slower than it could. BitChute might come online fully at some point. Gab has certainly been growing wildly, but I mean, Twitter of sort of the big three of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Twitter's the weakest, obviously. It's the least ingrained, the smallest, and also the fiscally weakest. So it's easier for Gab to sort of chip away at them, and they're more overt about their censorship, or have been. What I think is going to happen over the next couple of months is difficult to say, specifically because long term, I can say we're in a moral panic. The moral panic subsides, it collapses itself because it gets too large, it gets too stretched out. Like a definition like, oh, you're a Nazi. Well, what does it even mean anymore? They use that to mean someone who thinks borders exist, so it doesn't have any meaning at this point. At some point, it becomes humorous. It becomes a joke, like Hitler's a joke or something. People make some sitcom. What was that one from the 80s there where they had Adolf Hitler as the
Oh,
protagonist?
you're talking about the British show that had like 2 episodes?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
became funny after a while. It was humorous. Now they're trying to take back all these terms and make them spooky again. It's not going to work. They've already tried that before. And they'll overstretch and it'll collapse. But as far as a few months, we can't really predict anything. YouTube could end up not really ever implementing its new censorship program. If people speak, this is why I've told people they need to speak out against it with much more fervor. It needs to involve basically everyone. If everyone does that, Google probably will never even bother to implement it. If they do, they'll limit it to like terrorist training materials or something, which it appears to be alluded to as the main point originally of the program, and then it got too large and they started saying, okay, well, maybe just some of the offensive content will hide that too. Unpopular opinions will hide that too, and then it sort of snowballs from there. But it depends on what they actually implemented and its scope too. It's impossible, I guess, to say.
And I think probably a good subject to kind of close this out because we're getting near the end of the hour. We've talked about online, but there are some real world parallels. I've noticed that there have been a lot of protests for free speech, and I've noticed that we've seen a lot of Black Bloc and Antifa in the streets. Do you think that that's finally starting to slow down, or do you think that we're going to see more engagements between these two sides? And if they do still engage, do you think it will lead to an escalation of violence rather than just pushing each other, but maybe bats and sticks, knives and guns? Kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
It'll continue. It's been going on for a long time. There are people who like liberty. There are people who fucking hate liberty. And then there are people who are just partisans, and it depends on who's in office. And they're really the weakest link because they're the ones that they like join either of the other sides at any given time and don't even have loyalty to any real set ideology. It's kind of hard to figure out what a liberal or a conservative is at this point. They'll continue to clash and protest, but I think it'll take place. Honestly, I think it's going to take place more online, in the online world only, as opposed to physical clashes. Because in the past, if you wanted to spread word, oh, stop the Vietnam War, what would you do? Unless you like broke into a radio tower or something, you were waving a sign, sitting on some city corner, playing the bongos. Oh, it's like fucking for virginity, trying to bomb for peace. Now you don't have to do that, though. You make a YouTube channel or a Facebook post or something, and it spreads around to more people a lot more quickly. It's why Trump doesn't bother to talk to the old guard media. He doesn't go on really on cable at all. He just makes a tweet. It's so much more efficient.
Yeah, I've been surprised, I think, kind of by it. To me, at least, this is my opinion on the Black Bloc and Antifa and kind of the engagements that's been going on in the streets. It felt like that it was almost they were given a pass for a lot of years, like they were expected to show up at certain events, and this is how they behave, and everybody almost kind of turned a blind eye to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think kind of when you started seeing Trump and a lot of the alt-right and right-wingers kind of counter-protesting and pushing up against them, I think they were caught off guard, to be honest, because they weren't really used to that kind of pushback. And
Oh yeah.
I feel like they're almost in a point, right, where Antifa is embarrassed. They've been shamed because they've been seen as weak during these kind of confrontations, and so I guess my worry is that it's going to be kind of a pure escalation as time goes on. That they're going to try to appear to be more violent and stronger than they actually are, and it's going to lead to people getting hurt. I mean, I know they
Oh
like
yeah.
to they like to condemn everybody as a Nazi, right? But it feels to me like they're creating the monster they're trying to fight. Like if you go out and destroy everybody's property and you're violent with everybody and you scream Nazi at them, it's going to make people start to want to behave like Nazis and kick your ass.
Yeah. The sort of fringe vanguards of any established order, which Antifa is, when they start getting violent but ultimately less numerous, you know the end is nigh for whatever they're fighting for. Antifa simply became what they supposedly were against. They act like a bunch of thugs. They act like a bunch of literal jackboots, which is exactly sort of, if someone says, well, I'm against fascism, how do they depict the fascists? They probably depict a bunch of dudes in uniforms with steel-toed boots and riot batons trying to break store windows or something. That's what Antifa fundamentally does, and it hasn't escaped notice. I think it was months ago they had that rally, I think, in Seattle. And a bunch of the locals, and Seattle is a big liberal city, but a bunch of the locals came and were basically calling them a bunch of whining babies and stuff. And that's really the death knell of their movement. They have to get some people angry, but they have to try to cast themselves off as victimized. We're the underdogs fighting for freedom. That's not Antifa. It's not the social justice warriors. That's really ultimately the new right, or elements of it. And there are different groups like libertarians, alt-right, alt-light, new right. There are other associated movements, even constitutionalism. Hell, the Green Movement almost represents an actual struggle more than the people in Antifa, and that's hilarious.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed they've been being mocked a lot. I mean, I think that's a great way to basically disarm any movement is through mockery and humor.
Yeah.
The jokes about them burning trash cans and being daylight ninjas, and kind of the image of the hipster that got driven to the protest after he got a Starbucks latte in his mother's Prius is kind of the image that's circulating when it comes to Antifa, and I think that really pisses them off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that they're disgruntled, but the thing is, a lot of those people, they just want to go out and be violent for a little while, I think, and don't really have any ideology at all.
Right. I mean, we noticed too that people are taking measures now to try to identify them. I mean, we had the bike lock professor who beat somebody in the street, and God, he was identified in what, like 24 hours.
Yeah.
He got charged and is facing some real prison time. So I think that's even weeding out their more violent members that just want to go and raise hell. The kind of the black bloc guys. But yeah, it's such a strange situation. Since we're about to close up here, I'll ask a few more chat questions if that's good with you.
Yeah.
This is a question I get asked a lot, so I'll ask you: are traps gay?
Uh, yeah.
So there you go, chat. Straightforward answer. No dancing around it. They've been asking that one for a while. I'll give it a second. It kind of flies by, so you got to give me a second. Is there anything that you wanted to say or touch on? We kind of talked about a little bit here, but anything that you think is important to kind of bring up?
I think it's important for people not to be intimidated, not to be afraid, because the current social paradigm is going to be like every single other social paradigm. It's driven by technology, opinion, and discourse. It will fail. It will fall. It is inevitable. Even if the left were to get the guns, so to speak, and try to literally just take over everything, they would fail in due time. So I wouldn't be, don't be intimidated. It'll pass. Liberty will come back online. Innovation will take place, and it'll be all good.
Well, awesome. You mind if I ask, where did you get the username from? I made a joke about Hex in the game, but how did you come up with Styxhexenhammer666? What was the inspiration for that?
It's just a fusion of the River of Hell and then the German word Hexenhammer for the Malleus Maleficarum, which is the witch's hammer, the famous guide they used to persecute witches and destroy them at the time, and then 666 is. I just tacked that on. Originally, I was just Styxhexenhammer. That was back when I was more on the satanic side, honestly. But I mean, it kind of grows on me. It's become my brand. I'm not going to change it at this point. It'd be, pointless to do so. I don't really care. I figure if the small minds see 666 on my username and say, oh, I can't watch this, it's devil content, well, then they're small-minded, so they're not going to like my content anyway when they see what I have to say. Who cares?
Fair enough. Fair enough. For everybody that's been listening, this has been Styxhexenhammer666. Thanks a lot for giving me some of your time to kind of talk about this stuff. I feel like we have very similar opinions on a lot of this, and so I thought it'd be good to have you on to kind of talk about it. I will put a link in the description to your accounts. I'll put the Patreon one too. You said you're on there right now?
Yes.
I'll put that definitely in the description for people that want to use that as an alternative if they want to support you to Patreon. Give them the choice. Let them choose which platform they want to do. And again, hopefully Patreon does well. Then I guess I mean if they're going to be a good competitor and they're not going to be as so authoritarian, I think that's a really good approach.
Yeah, so far they've been remarkably stable.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, I had a great time.
All right. Well, anytime you want to come back, just hit me up and I'll have you on again. We can talk about some more.
Sounds good.
All right. You have a good day.
You too.
Okay, chat. Well, that was Styx. Had a little conversation about Google and a few other things. Asked him a couple questions that you wanted to have asked. Apologies, but there will be no spoon clinking. You will have to clink your own spoons for today, or imagine it in your mind and and hope that it fills the void for what you were looking for. We'll go for another 10 minutes here. I'll answer some chat questions, then I'll close up the stream. So, what do you got for me, chat? What do you want to ask? MisterMetokur, are you fit? I used to be a gym guy all the time. I did. I really liked it. There's something about working out that just makes you. I don't know how to explain it. You feel good. It just gives you a burst of energy. I am not hitting the gym as much as I should be because I've been sick. I'm not a boogie, if that's what you're asking. Also, I keep seeing people in chat saying Boogie collapsed, but I'm guessing they're just fucking around. I'll check that out later. I'm pretty sure Boogie has not passed away. I'm pretty sure his surgery went just fine. Jim, can you go on cam? No. My entire mentality when it comes to the internet is I've always loved the idea of anonymity. It's why I prefer image boards like 4chan, as opposed to a site that is just I don't know, where it's your entire fucking identity thrown on there. This whole idea of put your picture up and put your full name up and put your address up and put your phone number up is a really, really new approach to using the internet, and it's a foolish one. Now, some people can deal with it and they're fine, and they're not doing it for vapid reasons. But I think a lot of kids nowadays are really fucking stupid putting their pictures up and their names up and everything else. It's asking for trouble. And besides, when you're more of an anonymous kind of account, you can speak more freely. I mean, that's just people are freer when they're not known. And a lot of people like to tag that as, oh, well, you're going to say terrible things. Well, no, but you might be more inclined to be brutally honest about what you think. So, no, I'm not going to go on camera. I'm not going to have a face reveal and super chat it so you all pay me thousands of dollars for it and some dumb shit like that. I am a shitty little image that you will see that gets updated from time to time, but nothing more than that. The content I produce is my voice, I guess. If you don't like what I have to say, what would it matter if I did a face reveal? And you're going by quick, so is Charlemagne the God still coming for you? I don't know. It's hard to see a midget coming for you. You've got to really study the ground really carefully. I know that he's still fucking angry. I seem to piss off midgets for some reason, and I don't know why that is. But Charlemagne the God is probably crying to himself like a little girl because he wanted to do a show about mean tweets. Again, Charlemagne, act like a black man. Stop being a little white bitch and hosting a show about upset people on the internet. Grow a fucking spine. You're a shock jock. You should be ashamed of yourself. What does shooting up heroin feel like? I have no idea. I don't do hard drugs. I'm too much of a pussy for that. I don't want to get hooked on heroin. You're gonna have to ask somebody else about that one. Would you be open to a debate with Destiny again? Oh, fuck. Yeah, you know what? I would debate Destiny again. But I'd have a lot of short jokes for him. I don't think he'd like it. He'd be twitching in his chair like he usually does. But yeah, I would debate Destiny again. But this time I'd like to have a defined idea of what the fuck I'm getting into. That first debate that I had with him wasn't something that was set up days in advance. The first debate that I had with Destiny was somebody randomly said on Twitter, Destiny wants to debate you. And then 20 minutes later, I'm on a stream. How do I feel about Pickle Rick? What the fuck is Pickle Rick? I don't know what that is. Is that some new meme you kids are into with your hippity hop and your iPads? I don't know. I don't know what that is. Somebody said, Jim, go to 8chan. I used to post on 8chan, but this was years ago because it kept having all these fucking technical issues. And I'm sure it's fixed by now, but it really put me off of it because every time I'd post something, it would like double, triple, quadruple post it, or it wouldn't go through, or there'd be some weird loading error. I don't know if they fixed it or not. I'm sure they have to have. I mean, I can't imagine that that's been going on for 2 years. Do I own a Nintendo Switch? Do I look like a retard to you? No, I don't own a fucking Nintendo Switch. Hey, here's your plastic screen. Don't put it near anything warm or it's gonna melt on you. Oh, by the way, the dock scratches it. Fuck that. Let's make a handheld system where the fucking controller detaches. How does that make any fucking sense? Oh yeah, hold this really uncomfortable piece of plastic in your hands, and you can play with one thumbstick, and your other friend can play with one thumbstick, and you can cry because you don't have a real console. No, I don't have a Nintendo Switch. Favorite video game genre? You know what? I'll tell you what I'm playing right now. I'll tell you the exact game that I'm playing right now, and I've had a fucking blast with it. It's on Steam. It's called Evil Genome, and it is just you have like this. It's the voice acting is really I think what puts it over the top for me. You've got like this hillbilly AI who follows you around with this southern drawl. When it's like this super sci-fi setting, and you've got like a good old boy as your AI companion, and then all the characters' names are ridiculous. Like you run into NPCs who literally their name is Man in Cave. Man in Cave, bandits bad. Bad people over this way. You kill bandits. Okay, I'll go kill them. Remember, bandits are bad. Yeah, I got that. I'm gonna go kill them. Just remember, they are bad people. All right, thank you, Man in Cave. I will go do that. It's like a Metroidvania game, but it's fucking fun. I'm having a blast with it. Be my be my friend. I'm a waterhead. Well, if you're a waterhead, how the hell did you type that? If you're a waterhead, how are you even using a computer without pissing and shitting yourself? Oh, what consoles do I own? I had a PS4, but it busted on me. It broke on me about 3 or 4 months ago. Something with a disc tray, but I'm not going to spend the money to fix it. Fuck it. I wanted to play Persona 5. That was really the only thing I was looking forward to. But you know what? Life is life. Sometimes shit breaks and you don't want to spend the money to fix it, and you just got to move on. Rei or Asuka? I don't, okay. Neogenesis Evangeline, or whatever the fuck this show is called. Listen, Shinji is a pussy. This entire anime is based around a boy that menstruates. I'm not watching that show or any of the characters associated with it. Oh god, my name's Shinji. My life is so sad. Oh, I'm on my period. My daddy doesn't love me and I want to fuck my mommy. Oh, I'm so sad. Fuck that show. Don't ask me if I like either of the characters from it. I'm not watching that that shit tier anime. What are your thoughts on Boogie? My thoughts on Boogie are if you're going to do an emergency stream where you're saying your wife is divorcing you, don't try to play it down and do damage control and pretend that wasn't really what you were talking about. In that stream, he actually says, we've been talking about it for months. So if it was just some misunderstanding from a text message, why would you have been talking about it for months beforehand? That would be my that would be my answer to that. Maybe don't broadcast your personal shit on the internet is probably a good idea too. I mean, is that weird? I've mentioned I'm sick once or twice in a few interviews, but you know what? That's the most you're ever going to get out of me. I don't like this idea of like me telling you all this personal shit. Why would you fucking care? I make videos about people shitting in diapers. Do you really need to know a detailed analysis of who I am? Who fucking cares? Keep your personal shit personal. Play Dark Souls. I played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. And Demon Souls and Bloodborne. They're all fun. Opinion on Attack on Titan bores me to tears. It's a fucking boring show to watch. Oh, let's go slice their necks open and then come up with some convoluted story about how Daddy made a super formula to turn us into naked half men that like to eat people. Whatever. I'd like, fuck. Just not my cup of tea. How tall am I? I'm 6 feet. I'm 6 feet tall. Am I dying? No, I'm not dying. What are my thoughts on Venezuela? Venezuela is screwed. Are you kidding me? They want to put people in prison for mean tweets. Maybe Charlemagne the God should get together with Maduro and they can host they can host their own socialist version of crying on the internet together. Uh-oh, somebody made fun of socialism. We'd better torture him to death. That country is going to tailspin into fucking oblivion. Oh, we can't feed people. Let's nationalize everything. Let's get rid of all the foreign investors. Let's lock up any political dissidents. Let's get rid of the political opposition. And somehow it's going to be a socialist paradise. It's going to turn into a hellhole. And they're going to flee into every neighboring country. They're going to go to Colombia. They're going to go to fucking Brazil. They're going to go wherever they can to get the fuck away. Have I thought of quit smoke or have I thought of quitting smoking? I probably will eventually one day. Don't misunderstand me. I'm well aware of the risks of it. If one day I get lung cancer, I am not going to complain because it was something I brought on myself. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'm right-handed. I'm not ambidextrous either, so it's completely right-handed. Who else would you have on a live stream with you? I just really wanted to have Styx on because, yeah, I've seen some of his videos dealing with the current situation. I know he's on VidMe. I've seen him over there, and I wanted to get his opinions on some of this. What is my opinion on Dragon Ball Super? I think Dragon Ball Super is what GT should have been. Like I like how we're all ignoring that GT ever existed now. It's a good thing to do because that was awful. Do I believe in Pizzagate? Do I believe that there are pizzerias in Washington D.C. that have underground tunnels where they shuffle along child sex slaves? No, I don't think that's probably happening. Do I believe that there are elite people and wealthy people that probably, abuse and sexually molest kids and they have networks to do that? Sure, of course I do. The richer you are, the more inclined you are to give into your perversions. But I don't know if I necessarily believe that's happening through the through the shell company of a pizzeria. Somebody saying Dragon Ball Super is shit. Well, you probably like Shinji, so your opinion is crap. Why did your father leave you? Probably because he walked in on you playing something you shouldn't have been playing. Or you were watching an episode of Boku no Pico and he was like, I can't deal with this kid anymore. I got to get the fuck out of here. I don't want to have this conversation with my son. It's just best to leave. Are Fudas gay? Do Fudas have a dick? That should answer your question. Why are we even having this discussion? Is there a penis involved? You want me to talk about Laura Loomer's tire? I already talked about that on Exodus Americanus 2 days ago. Laura Loomer and her poor tire. Oh my God, dry rot destroyed it. But let's blame it on Antifa. Okay, you're giving. This is a joke. You're out of your mind, Loomer. I'm not going to give you money. Fuck off. What are? Oh, that one went by too fast. You guys go quickly. So should we genocide manlets? Well, it'd probably go twice as fast as any other Holocaust because you can stack them on shoulder, shoulder on shoulder. Be a lot quicker, I guess, if you wanted to genocide them. Thoughts on Sargon getting hired by MTV? Are you people retired? He's fucking with you. Sargon hasn't been hired by MTV. That's that's the most sarcastic tweet you can make. You know that he's fucking with you, right? Did Jade give me AIDS? No, Jade is not a gift giver. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Jim, where do you live? Why would I tell you where I live? What sense would that make? Where do I live? 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Come visit me. That's where I live. What are my fetishes? Everybody acts like this deviance thing. I'm not going to cover the shit I'm into. Believe me, I will. I'll poke fun at everything. So when it comes time, I will openly admit what it is, and you will be able to laugh at me. So just keep an eye out for that. Once we get past the community shit, Five Nights at Freddy and a few others, we'll get back into the more mainline deviant stuff, and eventually get around to my kink, and you can laugh at my ass. How many channels do I have ballpark right now? I've got my main one. I've got a backup one, Brightside Bob, which most people know about. I used to do like DSP streams and just shitposts on that. And then I've got three others that I use to fuck about with. I'm trying to pick out the questions as they fly by here. So just give me a minute. Will Terry Davis run for president in 2020? God, I hope so. His platform would be amazing, and we'd all get a free copy of Temple OS, so it would be a win-win for the whole country. Why are there so many questions about anime? Why are you asking me what I watch as far as anime goes? I have terrible taste in entertainment. I think everybody knows this by now. Favorite kind of sandwich? This is some fucking boring ass questions. What I don't. My favorite type of sandwich would probably be I don't know, maybe like peanut butter and jelly or BLT. It's whatever the fuck I can make if I'm hungry and I've got a few minutes. Do I have a cat? No, I don't have a cat. I'm a dog guy. Fucking hate cats. They're just vicious. Cats are just fucking mean. Dogs are superior. I'm sorry to tell everybody that, but it's the truth. You just need to accept the truth. Somebody telling me how to put it into slow mode. Yeah, I know how to do that, but half the fun of a live stream, if you're going to show up and you're going to shitpost and do stuff, is letting people say whatever they want. I hate these people that fucking moderate their streams. Like I see a lot of people in here say occasionally, "Oh, it's cancer. Oh my God, somebody said something horrible," or "What a dumb question." It's half the fun of this shit. I'm not going to moderate you. Say whatever you like. Hey, yeah, it goes by fast, but hopefully I pick it up. Is pegging gay? Yes, pegging is gay. If you're getting fucked in your ass, you're gay. I'm sorry, that's simple mathematics. Will I pause your neg hole? Ah, God, I don't. It's a tempting offer. I think I'll have to pass on that. Tits or ass, Jim? I love tits. I like big tits. Have you guys not seen a picture of Jade? She's got amazing breasts. It's going by so quick. Okay, I'll take a few more questions, then I'm going to wrap it up here. Well, give it another 5 or so minutes. So ask away. We'll have a nice close out to the stream. If you've got some biting questions that you need. Is lesbian sex gay? No, that's actually pretty heterosexual. It's almost completely heterosexual. No, lesbian sex is not gay. People asking about North Korea, I guess. Do I think they're going to do anything? All little Kim Jong Un does is, rattle his saber. Oh, look, I made a missile that blew up over the ocean. Oh, look, I made another missile that flew into a mountain. Oh, look, I made another missile that didn't get off the platform. And we've got a nuke. Oh, I'm super scared. Maybe South Korea's fucked, but it's not going to do shit to me. If North Korea was dumb enough to attack the United States, it would be a crater afterwards. Let Kim Jong Un do whatever he wants. Is 9/11 gay? Well, that's a question everybody should be asking. People keep asking thoughts on the Orville. I don't know what you're asking me. I guess I'm out of the loop. I've been playing too much. The fuck's the name of it again? I've been playing too much Evil Genome. So I don't know what you're asking me. It's like that Pickle Rick thing. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Did you just ask me if I'm Cat? No. Have you seen his editing? You need to look at the videos I make. How fucking amateur they are. How terrible the audio quality is, and how bad the editing and cutting of the visuals are. No, I'm not him. He's fucking way beyond my ability level. Yes, this video will stay up. It'll be available to watch later on. So if you miss the beginning of it or whatever, you can watch it later on. It'll stay up. You know what? I'll finish it out on this. I saw this asked a few times. What are my thoughts on DSP? Listen, I like laughing at him occasionally, and I had Brightside Bob to watch some of his streams and make jokes, but I don't really pay that much attention to what DSP does. It's maybe like I'll check in on it maybe once a month just to see the spiral of depression he's falling into, but outside of that, I don't really keep tabs on him. You know what? I'll answer that one. Am I a Jew? Is my last name Sheckelberg? Well, yes, it is. My name really isn't James. It's Herschel. Herschel Shoah Sheckelberg. And it's been a long con, but you guys fell for it. You guys completely fell for it. All right. Well, thanks for coming out to watch. I hope you guys like the guest. Again, I'll have all of Styx's information in the description. If you like what he had to say, if you want to check out his content, there'll be a YouTube link. If you want to support him, you have your choice between Patreon and Patreon. I'll put up both those links in the description for him. And it was cool of him to come out. I think we had a good conversation. You guys enjoy your afternoon. I'll have a video up this Saturday for those interested, talking about the things that have been going on in tech for the last 5 years, covering everything from the Mozilla witch hunts, the Ada initiative, the GNOME outreach program bankruptcy shenanigans, the Linus is a meanie shit, and about 13 other examples of why the tech industry has gone insane. Trying to wrap it up in a nice little bow to give you an idea of the things that have been happening. With that, I'm going to close it out. Again, thanks for coming, and maybe I'll do another Metocast soon. I don't know.